Hello, fellow Titan Quest fans.
Sorry about that. Had a frog in my throat or something. Welcome to this build guide video. If you thought vampires have nothing to do with ancient mythological Greece, this build might prove you otherwise. It's an interesting one because it completely focuses on vitality damage and the stat point distribution is completely different from most other builds. Most of the stat points are in Vigor, granting a giant health pool to make use of all the lifesteal, which makes the build almost immortal, while dishing out good damage. The build dashes in, uses Sweeping Strike and then a couple of basic attacks to follow up with Sweeping Strike again. Use Vanish half of the time to really deal some damage whenever you need. Let's start with the pros and cons. The build has high mobility, almost unkillable, decent damage, strong against mobs. As for the cons, the build can't one-shot bosses. It is also a crit build, but it can only do normal crits so far, no super crits. The build is also not strong until level 22. So it's kind of an endgame build, if you can even say that. Let's go over the abilities and their modifiers. The vampire build uses all of the good abilities that deal vitality damage. The two centerpieces of the build are our main skill Sweeping Strike and the primary attack. Sweeping Strike is used in most builds with the Whirlwind modifier, using Spin for win. I tried that and the damage is actually less, and the gameplay is just holding down two buttons, which really gets me bored soon. Our Sweeping Strike is just a one-time per use ability, and the best thing about it is the Siphon modifier that deals a big chunk of vitality damage and also gives a 25% vitality resistance reduction for 4 seconds. Sweeping Strike has a big area of effect, so this spell really is huge. And it is maxed out, of course. 1 point in rage gain, just to get the attack speed and damage going. The build uses a Sweeping Strike, hits 2 to 3 times with primary attack, then uses Sweeping Strike again. The rage build-up from the basic attacks builds up to 13% and that also increases the Sweeping Strike damage by 13%. Max out Overwhelm to get a good synergy out of switching between basic attacks and Sweeping Strikes. Ideally, you do 3 basic attacks to consume maximum Overwhelm to get 30% damage and a huge aiming chance. I also put 1 point in Thunder to reduce the enemy's armor for follow-up attacks. Our primary attack is also stacked with synergy. For one, we max out Vitality Drain, which deals 50% of our weapon damage as extra vitality damage. This type of damage has a 10% lifesteal. Also max out Onslaught to build up rage on hit and also get more attack speed and damage per rage stack. Another core skill worth skilling is Dodge. Just skilling it to level 4 is enough to max out Dash Attack, which has a huge synergy with this build, because we constantly dodge towards important mobs, such as enchanters, brutes or hero monsters. Right after the dodge we get a huge 60% damage increase and a 150% increased crit chance for 1.5 seconds, which is huge. Just dodge into the midst of the mobs, use Sweeping Strike, some basic attacks on key monsters, then another Sweeping Strike to clean up. The other abilities are only used to make this synergy stronger. The build really gets going with the lifesteal at level 22, because here we unlock the most important support skills for the build. Taste for Blood is a rogue's passive that really increases our vitality damage and lifesteal drastically. Use the feats lifesteal and vitality damage to get a 12% lifesteal out of our vitality damage and also a 5% vitality damage penetration, which means it ignores enemies' vitality resistance for 5% of our vitality damage. It seems most enemies don't have a high vitality resistance anyway. Another important tier 3 ability is Vanish. You use it as a movement spell, but more importantly as a damage spell. We use the lifesteal and enhanced critical hits modifiers. That gives a huge increase of our flat vitality damage, lifesteal, crit chance and crit damage. Use that skill when attacking very important mobs or bosses. Switching to Warfare Mastery, we have the passive Combat Rush, which is perfect for this build that alternates between Sweeping Strike and basic attacks. After using our melee Sweeping Strike, we get a 45% damage increase. Use the feats Armor and Damage to further increase our efficiency in combat and leave out Regeneration because we have such a large amount of lifesteal that regen doesn't do anything for us. The active aura ability Battle Awareness is also important. We only skill it up to level 7 to max out Vitality Drain, to get a nice Vitality damage increase and also an additional lifesteal value that always works, opposed to a spell like Vanish that works half of the time. If you like what you're seeing, consider subscribing. I release a ton of Titan Quest 2 content like this. The next one, Battle Rage, is also very important. We use the feats Rage Amount, which enables a maximum rage stack of 13, and Rage on Kill to boost our rage when killing fodder, to attack other mobs faster with the next basic attack. Rage Overflow does not do anything because we are at full 2k health with every swing and this feat wouldn't do anything. Good old Weapon Proficiency is also huge here because we do all our damage with our weapon. Use Critical Chance and Ailment Chance because we don't need attack speed because of the rage mechanics. Once we got rage going, we really attack fast. Since we attack fast and also have a good AoE main spell, we also want to do crits. Crits mean more damage and more damage means more lifesteal. The Rogue Mastery passives are optimal for that, starting out with Accuracy. Don't use the high critical hit chance because it cuts our crit damage multiplier in half, which is not what we want to do here. Lots of crits and decent damage is what we are going for, so we also max out Deft Hands with the ailment chance and critical hit chance feats. We don't need attack speed because of the rage. Sleight of Hand we also max out later, go for critical chance first and later ailment chance. Another great mobility spell is Flicker of Rogue Mastery. Use that to get around the map faster, but also to reposition yourself when you want to quickly close the gap between you and some key mobs. I recommend you put 2 points in cooldown charge. Right here I am still missing a point and doing that next level up. We also want to invest some points in the rogue aura called Preparation, in order to deal more damage. Max out increased critical hits and later also a few points in conservation to have enough energy. To further increase our health pool, which is already huge, we later go for 4 points in Warfare's passive Battle Hardened and go for the health modifier. Let's talk about items. During this playthrough I use all kinds of weapons, dual swords which was okay, later I tried a spear and a shield variant, which worked reasonably well, but you really want to go for a two-handed agility weapon. They have huge base damage, but still attack way faster than two-handed might weapons. We need that attack speed to squeeze in 3 basic attacks between the sweeping strikes. The best weapon so far on my level 33 hero is that Romfalia. For the weapon you go for a high crit chance, weapon attack damage, and ideally the draining prefix that gives high flat vitality damage. This one doesn't have that, but still it's the best one I've got. The suffix of devastation that gives area ability damage boosts our sweeping strike, and lightning damage is okay. As for the chest armor, you prioritize Vigor over anything. You don't need health regen at all. The more resistances the better, also additional life is good. Our shoulders need to have the of death suffix, which increases the crit chance and you also want to have some resistances or life. For the helmet, I recommend energy regen over anything, because we spam our sweeping strike all the time. On the amulet, I went for the stately prefix that increases all our stats, which includes our main stat Vigor, but also some agility, which is nice for the build. This increases both life and damage. We also want to have some energy regen ideally. To reduce the cooldown of Vanish, you can also use the ethics of concentration that reduces the cooldown so that you can use Vanish more than half of the time. The rings are not easy to farm because we want to have the draining prefix, which gives flat vitality damage and also either crit chance or physical damage. If you manage to find all three of those on a ring, you got the perfect one. In arm armor, we want physical damage, prioritize that over anything. The ideal boots have both movement speed, movement skill cooldown and also the inherent stat of dodge cooldown. This helps you spam our dodge, which we use excessively. We also want energy potions that give energy regen. Health potions need to have life on them, since health regen is really not needed with all the lifesteal. The next thing worth taking a look at is the attribute points. Their allocation is something original. We actually put most of our points in Vigor and just some of them in agility to hold some pieces of gear. Vigor increases all three secondary attributes, so it scales all types of damage. That includes vitality damage. All the lifesteal in the world is useless if you don't have a good health pool to work with. A build that gets one shot from enemy abilities does not benefit by lifesteal a whole lot. This build can tank most stuff after you reached a certain threshold. At level 34 you should be over 2k health. One strike or basic attack immediately gets you back to full health, which makes the build almost immortal. I'm saying almost because in some rare instances you can take a bunch of damage in between your swings so that you actually die. Let's talk about strategy then. As I previously mentioned, the build takes off at level 22 and before that you definitely are not super strong and far from invincible. The build is not weak until then, but you definitely don't recognize much lifesteal during the earlier levels. Once the vitality damage from numerous abilities and gear adds up, you can really go to town and tank almost anything. Vigor increases your health pool. You need to cross a certain threshold of stat points in Vigor in order to survive big enemy attacks. I recommend you start off by putting points in your primary attack. Put one in Onslaught, then max out Vitality Drain. In the meantime you put a few points in Sweeping Strike and go for Siphon. I actually skilled the Rogue Mastery first, because with Vanish and Flicker I get my mobility spells as early as possible at the start of the flooded farmlands, which is a huge area. Skill the passives as explained earlier one by one, while Taste for Blood being the passive with the absolute priority. Combat Rush is also very important. The rest of the passives mainly have the function of increasing our weapon damage and critical hit chance. In my earlier levels I also used Warhorn of Warfare Mastery. This one deals some vitality damage on use and also reduces the enemy's resistance. This resistance reduction does not stack with the resistance reduction of Sweeping Strike's Siphon, but I still used it like this. Dodge in, use Warhorn, then Sweeping Strike and then some basic attacks. The vitality damage of Warhorn really falls off soon. You'll notice it around level 18 or 19 and I recommend you reach back into the main skills as explained earlier. And that's about it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I really can recommend this build. Once you pull through to level 22, the hard work pays off and this is where the fun begins.
Fun begins.
Thanks for watching. Here is some gameplay of the Vampire build.